Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Fall ball right around the corner. Actually, this weekend. If you haven't signed up, it's too late for this one. But hey, there's much more coming up after Labor Day. Make sure you get yourself in there. If you just got a group of kids who wants to play some baseball, go have some fun, enjoy, get a few swings. It's fall ball. That's what it's about. Just enjoy the fall baseball. We're going to be heading towards the fall classic. Unfortunately, the Cardinals look like they're fading in the fall. And that's kind of, but that's the way it goes. So, look. Great stuff happening. They got some good stuff lined up out at the WAC down at Ballparks of America. Get yourself signed up for some fall ball. Game7Baseball.com. Cool stuff coming up. Winter workout tour, man. We're going to Springfield. It looks like we're heading back to Tennessee and Kansas City for the winter workout tour. Looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of fun. But today on the show, baseball talk. Joining me, a gentleman I met at the M.S.S.U State Championships, Nick Tuck, the assistant coach at Missouri Southern State University. Coach, thanks for joining us.
So this area back here is basically production. They do a lot of the artwork back here. They do the production. So any of that stuff that comes in off of, we'll say, our fanware stores, stuff that comes in off the team stores, a lot of the coaches wear, a lot of the last minute, hey, we got to have it in the next 10 minutes stuff. That's all comes back here. This area is where all the day-to-day stuff that comes in really goes through. The retail store is its own little entity. This is where the real work is done.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Excited.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Coach Tuck has been, this is your 16th year, it says, at Missouri Southern. That's a pretty good tenure there, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's gone by quick. Love it. I went to Missouri Southern. I'm from Southwest Missouri, little town, Lamar, Missouri.
I know
Football
Lamar.
town now. But I played at Missouri Southern, came here out of high school, and my first 3 years, Warren Turner was our head coach. And then my senior year, he retired. Bryce Darnell, who was the head coach at Webb City, had a very successful run there at Webb, great program. He was an alum of Missouri Southern, and so they hired him, and I played my senior year under Coach Darnell, and then I was a grad assistant for him for 2 years, and then got hired on as his full-time assistant after that. So yeah, I've been there, kind of ever since every step of the way with him. So he's great. I love it. I love Missouri Southern.
That's kind of nice for the family too, isn't it? Because baseball coaching, any kind of coaching, is really a transient job, and to be able to stay in one spot, that's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. My wife's family is from Joplin. She actually played volleyball at Southern, and her family's right there. My family's right there. When you're younger and you're in coaching, you probably feel like you need to be moving around and trying to climb. I just like Missouri Southern, and, we've got 4 kids now. And I just really, I love Missouri Southern. I'm happy. Like, Coach Darnell is one of my best friends. I love being an assistant coach, and, it's just good, man. It's good. And Missouri Southern means a lot to me. So.
I love that. Well, let's we're going to get into some of these things, but because I was reading through your bio, and these are things that are interesting to me. And I know when we talk baseball, everybody likes to talk about the big stuff, who's going where, this, that. But most kids are like yourself when you're going to college to play baseball, and I think everybody would like to aspire to the Major League Baseball level. That's always the ultimate goal, right? Uh,
Yep.
but you have your bachelor's degree in physical education and a master's degree in educational administration. How have those things helped you as a baseball coach?
I just think like when you're going through the education process, like part of the program you're going through, like you're kind of prepping to, you know, manage a classroom and communicate with younger kids, and I don't know, you got to be organized, and you kind of learn some of those things early on. Like all along, I thought I was gonna like coming out of high school. My dad was in education. My uncle was in education. My uncle coached baseball for a long time, high school baseball. So I thought I was gonna all along. I wanted to be a high school baseball coach, and I love high school baseball. And so like if you're going into administration, everyone's or education, you probably need to go into administration at some point, or you want to be able to do that. And so I kind of that was what I was thinking, and then our assistant coach at the time, my senior year, said, "Hey, man, like we need another guy, like as a GA. Is that something you're interested in doing?" And then so that's when I kind of started thinking about college. But I think just like, I don't know, I feel like it kind of prepared me for college in some ways, you know.
Absolutely. You got um, you've got 16 years under your belt. Talk to us about, some of the things that you've seen, the changes just in that 16 years, just in baseball in general, your thoughts to the overall scope of baseball and where it is today.
I think it's great. I mean, you can look at it from, I mean, at the high school level, I think kids play a ton of baseball now, which is great. So like when I was in high school, Legion was huge, and I know Legion is still going, and there's some really good programs out there. But if we wanted to play in the summer, you played Legion ball,
Hmm.
and we played quite a bit, but now there's a lot more. Opportunities and options and like ways for kids to maybe get seen and get themselves out there, and just like from a development standpoint, like there's a lot of facilities that you can work at, and really good coaches out there that you can work with in the off season, maybe out of your sport. I think that's a huge thing that's changed with the game from when I was 20 years ago or whatever, is just like what you can do outside of your season to get better. The resources and the information that's out there, and then the people and the facilities that are out there to help you get better, and just opportunities that are provided for kids that maybe weren't there 20 years ago. um, and like some of it is expensive, and some of it's but you don't necessarily have to spend $8,000 a summer. I mean, you can, and a lot of people do, when you talk fees and hotels and all that stuff. But, there's also teams that are maybe travel organizations on a smaller level that aren't quite as expensive. There's high school programs now that, while maybe they don't, like in Southwest Missouri, Legion is not really alive anymore. So, but what's great is that, you have clubs that kids can play for, but you also have high school coaches who are running summer programs that are playing in a lot of the tournaments that are great ways for kids. I think so. Those are opportunities. And then just like, you know, um,
Let me ask
yeah,
you
just,
this.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. You come back to that's a kind of an overarching thing. We talk about youth baseball. When I say youth baseball, and we call it youth baseball Midwest, I lump elementary, middle, and high school into, because it's all still, you're a youth.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting is let's take youth baseball at the elementary level. There's a lot of people that go back and forth. How much do you play? How much should you play? You know, we talk about club baseball. It's all
Yeah.
club baseball. Um, if you're putting yourself in this position, you've got kids. I'm sure they play some ball or whatever the case may be, or sports. Um, Looking at where you're at the collegiate level, what is your thought process as you look at the overarching space there? I've always said if a person wants to pay 8 grand to go and play summer baseball, that's up to them. It's their money. You know, do what you
Yeah.
want to do. But what about let's bring this back to just a thought process of development. Where do we go from there in just talking about development? Is it about games? Is it about off season? And where does that really kind of arc to another level?
I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question. I think that, like, for me personally, I think that you got to play games, man. I think that, like, one of the best ways to develop as a player is to play games. And, but also, well, just also like challenging yourself with game like situations. So, like, the more you can do that, and like with opportunities to go places, like to train somewhere, or like if your town has an indoor facility or whatever, you can't, we don't live in California or Florida, you can't play year round. But what we can do now with like machines and stuff to kind of simulate game speed, the more you can simulate those game situations, the better. But to answer your question, like about developing as a player, I think you got to play, and I think that's like the measuring stick is games. But that doesn't mean you have to be going all over the place to play games. You can do that on a very local level, and I think that most communities, a lot of communities provide that, or you're not far from that. I mean, obviously in St. Louis, there's tons of opportunities, but like we got in Joplin and Webb City. I live in Webb City, which Webb City and Joplin are right next to one another, like two really good little league programs. Webb City has a great reputation for their little league program. I mean, they were one game away from Williamsport, and they are in that situation a lot. And like, there's a lot of good, like at the local level, like very cost effective options for kids to develop. So I don't know if I'm answering that question, but like, I don't know if, like, when is there a time to start doing this? I don't know. I mean, we've got players on our roster that never really did that. They always kind of played locally. Then we've got kids on our roster who did all that, and they went to the showcases, and they spent a lot of money to play in the summer. So I think it's, I don't know when, but I mean, I think you just got to play, and the more you can play, the better, but there's ways to do that you don't have to, like, stop playing other sports too, so
I think it's interesting. I like to see how people, especially in your position, answer these questions because I think the best thing you said there was the most interesting thing you said is you got guys that didn't do that and you got guys that did do that. You have guys that came up in different ways that still made it to the collegiate level.
yeah.
I think what's interesting and what I say to a lot of people is what's how do you find your way? And I don't think everybody is the same, and I don't think you can. I think we try to cookie cutter so many things. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a ton of different ways to get good. I mean, like, you may, you know, play a ton of games in the summer. You may play a lighter schedule in the summer. You may be a three-sport athlete that's required to, football's wanting your time in the summer, basketball wants a lot of your time, so, like, how do you, you know, how do you do that? Some guys, hit a ton with their dad in the backyard and, get a lot of work done behind the scenes. Like, there's so many different ways to get better, and to everybody's got kind of a different journey or, path that they had that got them here, so
Yeah. Well, I think
So
it's
I don't.
interesting too, as you talk about Web City. And I know his name's difficult. I should have looked it up because I know you guys got a lot of, and I know I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but the head coach there currently at Web City, we've talked a few times.
Coach Donig, yeah, Andrew
Don't,
Donig,
don't,
and he's a
yes.
Missouri Southern alum. He's a Missouri Southern alum, by the way, too.
There you go. Uh, Heck of a coach. Met him at the state championships the year prior. They were there. Had a good run this year. Just fell a little short. Good baseball team, good program. That's just a sports high school, man. Football, all of it. Web City, they just kind of grind it out. Um, but I think it's interesting. We're going to be down in Springfield, and you see, as you were talking about Springfield and that area, Joplin, it is kind of different than a St. Louis or a Kansas City. And I think it's interesting in that respect. We talk with over at Willard, Coach Scott McGee a lot, Coach Logan Hughes over at Nixa. And we're going to be down there. They have feeder programs in the summertime that help their high school programs, which is kind of different than a St. Louis. And you have a lot of these kids playing together.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating in that question. It doesn't always have to be the same. I think you got to find those things that fit for you, and especially when you got kids coming out of that elementary, and especially into that. I think that mold of that seventh, eighth grade right there, where you're really finding out who are those kids that you think might take off. Because I think that's the prime spot. You find the kid that really is interested in continuing to develop, who wants to work, because you know as well as I do, Coach, 6 years old, even to 13 sometimes, we're done. Let's go to the chicken and pickle, man, and play some pickleball or get a snow cone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Like yeah, it just, yeah, I want to kind of touch on like what you said. You mentioned Scott McGee and you mentioned Coach Hughes and like kind of the Southwest Missouri area. And I'm from this area. So like, I really like this area and I like our high school baseball coaches. And I mean, the whole state of Missouri, I feel like we got really good players, but yeah, we've got great coaches in the area and, some great programs in the area, and obviously Web City. I mean, you can look at our roster. We have a lot of Web City guys on our team, and that's been a great program through the years for a long time. And, we just recently, we've got some good commitments. I'm not going to name names or high schools, but from some of the schools that we've had some great players from Willard. We've had, Nick's is a great program. Kickapoo, Coach Hauser's been there forever. And I don't want to leave programs out, but, we've had players from all those schools that have been very successful here. And it's nice getting players from good programs, and we've got we've had kids from Francis Howell. We got an All-American third baseman from Francis Howell right now. We got another good player come from Francis Howell right now. Coach Perkins, but just high school coaches, man, the lifeblood. And I tell you what, man, you want to know about a good player in the area? Call Coach McGee because that he knows what's going on. He is in tune.
That is the truth.
He's had some great programs. It's always fun to, just run into all those coaches and, get their take. And they're so like at the ground level with all the players in your area. It's tough as a college coach because we're playing in the spring and they're playing in the spring. So you can never watch as much high school baseball as you want during the high school season. And that, in my opinion, that's the most fun time to watch high school baseball. I love getting out, especially around the playoffs, but it just doesn't jive always with our schedule. So you got to communicate with coaches and find out, hey man, I need a heads up. You don't know it all. You can never know enough as a recruiter, as a coach. And so you rely on coaches like, hey, Coach Donig, what'd you see when you played Nixa? Or, Coach Hughes, you played Ozark and Kickapoo. Coach, you bounce Coach McGee. Who do you like in the 2026 class or whatever? And you just try to communicate with those guys and just gather information and go cross check it. But we have some great coaches in our area, great high school programs, and I love it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, we've had Coach McGee on, and you bring up a name, and I mean he starts rattling off stats and spray charts, and I'm like, Coach, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really kind of amazing how much information he has on players, but it shows you his commitment to the level of baseball that program plays. And again, another state championship this year. Congratulations! We were there and they beat a good Webster Groves team. They played some really good baseball, high level baseball down the stretch. And
Yeah.
now you got some. You talk about smaller class at Logan Rogersville, uh, Aurora. They had a good
Oh
run
yeah,
this year.
yeah, dude. Aurora has had a great. They had a great run for a while, and we had several of those players on our team. And Coach Hoffman's a good coach, does a good job, and we actually had a kid, Matt Miller, that was on all those Aurora teams. That I mean, man, they were good. Matt just finished 2023 was his last year. He had 25 jacks and 80 RBIs with us. Was an All-American as a senior. So yeah, that was another program that I didn't mention there. So
Hey,
sorry if
it's
if your name didn't get mentioned to your school, man. We didn't name them all. But
right.
yeah,
It's true. It's hard because Republic out there has been playing good baseball. You mentioned Ozark, who's played good baseball recently. And those are bigger name schools. Springfield Catholic, of course. Coach Spitz over there does a good job. I think, and that's the thing about where we are. We're up here around the St. Louis area, and that's one of the things that I think is so important in looking around the state is that Southwest region. There's so much good baseball around there. Camdenton, if it weren't for some of the injuries that Camdenton featured last year, I think they'd have been right in the mix with
yeah.
Coach Stern in there. So you've got some serious stuff. And that's one of the things I like. And that's where I think the development process, when you're talking about how do you develop players, where does that start? Where does that go? As a coach, you're on the collegiate level and dealing with kids that are starting in that path to the next and coming to you. Where do you see kids coming into your program, and not just pointing out certain things, but do you see most of these kids developed at a high level, or are there still things that we can work on?
There's always stuff you can work on, but I think high school programs and also summer like travel programs, I think they're doing a really good job developing kids. A lot of them have off-season programs, and they're running summer programs, and I think that like the biggest thing, like a huge thing that is just the weight training and the physicality of players now relative to maybe like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, because like used to, maybe, I don't know if you were like a dual sport guy that played football, like you were in the weight room quite a bit, but if you were just a baseball only guy, maybe you didn't do too much of that. And I think just the weight training is just like the physicality in today's game is good. And you go watch high school baseball, and I think you're seeing teams and players be more physical now than you know they ever have been. And I mean, if you're serious about the game, like you better be serious about being physical. Because you turn on a game and you watch college baseball and you watch pro baseball and you go to college baseball at any level, like good players are physical players. And so like if you don't, and we tell guys that on our visits, like, hey, because the weight component is like a huge part for us in player development, and just getting bigger and stronger. And like if you don't like to do that and you don't like to grind in the weight room and with when we have our when we condition, like you're not gonna, like, Missouri Southern is not the place for you. And so we tell all our guys that, like, hey man, it's gonna be a grind, so I don't, but there's a lot of kids who are kind of prepared for that, because they come from programs and that have prepared them for that. And then other things with development, man. I just think that there's there's so many people do a good job with like developing pitchers, and this and just what's out there, like developing arm strength and arm care. I feel like that we're in a pretty good place. The game, like, I don't know, kids are good, man. Baseball's good at the high school level, and a lot of people deserve credit for that.
Absolutely. I agree. I think when you go and watch, uh, one of the things that we started a few years ago was our GAC game of the week. And what's interesting, you always hear about the Class 6 schools, big schools, but the GAC features a lot of Class 4 schools in the one conference, and every year, I mean, we're featuring these Class 4, Class 5 schools that are very good baseball teams with really good players and really good baseball and really good coaches. And so, when you start looking around, as we said, with Aurora, with these smaller schools, of Logan, Rogersville, and that side, Springfield Catholic, and you got those up here, and in the middle, Moberly, a Mexico, Jeff City, a Southern Boone, Father Tolton. I could go on and on and on of these smaller schools, and down Valley Catholic, who was like had lost 2 games all season, down around the Cape area. It's just across the board. I do believe that the development process that has come into summer baseball has created a much better product at the high school level.
Yeah, I just think I think baseball is really good, right now. And I think a lot of people deserve credit for it,
Yeah.
like high school coaches and, summer coaches and just everyone who's helping kids and people who are, have facilities or whatever that kids are going and working out, even though they may not run teams out of there. Like, there's just a lot of good coaches out there. And I think also, like, if you look at like the strength training, that what's happening at the high school level with, like full-time strength coaches at the high school level now, it's just like, I don't know. I think people know, like, I think a lot of people are serious about it,
Yeah.
and if you're serious about it, that's a good way to tell, is just like weight room and stuff. I mean, when I saw you at the state championship games, and it's impressive. You look at, like, I'm not, forgive me if I get this wrong, but our rain game, right? That was Francis Howell and Liberty North. Is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, the physicality in those players was fantastic. And then you go down a level or two. Can't remember if it was Class 5 or Class 4, but Blair Oaks,
Blair Oaks, Class
great.
4.
St. Joe Benton, right? I mean, like, just the physicality of those players that those coaches were running out. It's like, man, this is good baseball. So it's yeah.
That's a great point. And the other part of it is, look at the amount of players. Look at the roster size of a Class 4 school. I couldn't believe the size of some of the rosters for those Class 4 schools. It was huge. That you
Yeah.
can, because when you talk about Class 4 size of school, that just doesn't happen a lot. And I thought that was really interesting as well. If you got depth, especially pitching depth, and I think that's fantastic. It is pretty interesting when you see a 6'4" kid. To your point, I'm going to come back to this. The first time I saw Brett Norfleet, who's playing football at M.S.S.U now, but the first time I saw Brett Norfleet was at a game that we were with. Game 7 baseball went down. His elite, Rawlings elite team was playing an all-star team at Hammonds Field before a Cardinal double-A baseball game. And here's this kid at 14, 15 years old that's 6'2" already, Just the size, the physicality of this kid at that time. And he was basically looked like a man among boys. And it didn't stop. And then when you saw him in high school, the first time I saw him really in high school, he hits this shot in the gap. And I bring my eyes back and he's rounding first. And I'm like, here's this kid that's 6'7". And I turn to look and I'm like, how's this kid already rounding first base? Hey, he shouldn't run like that.
Yeah.
And he does. And what you see there, you just like, all of a sudden you're like, that really jumps off the field. You're like, oh my gosh. Not only did you just bang that to the wall, he's rounding first already, and you wouldn't expect that from a kid that size.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable, really. And you see that more and more and more and more at the high school level around here. Just kids just physically able to, athletic, moving, whatnot. It's something else. I got to ask you, now that I don't know, because Division II.
Well, hold on. I'm still not sure Norfleet. That kid, I watched him. Was lucky enough to watch him play quite a bit, and I know he's an awesome football player and he's doing great. I swear, I told some pro guys after I saw him, I'm like, hey man, have you seen Norfleet? Because I think like he's a pro guy, baseball wise. Every time I saw that kid hit, he hit. I mean, there's some pretty good players in baseball that are 6'6", 6'7" right now. And you just got to believe, like, you just got to scratch your head, man. Like, if he would have played baseball, like, is that Charlie Condon in 4 years? I mean, the dude's a monster. That's what it looks like. That.
Yeah, you always saw the kid come to first base, and it was just like Mutt and Jeff. He's
Yeah,
you
he's
see
a
that?
good player, good athlete. Yeah. So,
Oh my
sorry, I
gosh.
didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. What didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I love that thought process because I do think he could. I mean, I saw him hit a ball over the scoreboard at Troy Buchanan High School, in a playoff game. The strength, the ability, I think he is that kind of guy. Yeah, I think he's a pro baseball player, most definitely. I think it'd be fun, but
Yeah.
don't know.
But he'll probably be a pro football player. He might be a pro football player too. So we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
Fun to watch. So.
But the last thing I want to talk about, I want to come back to this real quick. Last thing within this development thought process and things, we work a lot with the Missouri American Legion baseball program. And I know that they're working to get back into the southwest part of the state. They're talking to some folks, and there's some people that are very interested in that. What would you say, to people about that? Well, I'm sure you're a Legion. Most guys your age played Legion baseball.
Yeah.
And what would you say to that as a coach? Where's your thoughts on those types of things?
No, I mean, I can only speak from my experiences, and I when I was growing up, I graduated in 2003 from Lamar High School, and we had a Legion program, and I mean that's what we did, and I love Legion ball. I miss those days. It was fun, not because today's not as good or that was better, nothing like that. I just had great experiences as a Legion baseball player, and it was. I don't know, man. It was just, it was a great time, and one thing that I really liked about Legion was that in high school ball, we were classified based on the size of our school. But in Legion, our district was, Lamar had a team and we had a team that was, before they lost their team, like little bitty towns like Golden City, Lockwood, Everton, they were all on a team called Tri-County. But our district in Legion was Lamar, Tri-County, Carthage, Webb City, Carl Junction, Joplin, whatever. There were 8 of us, but it was kind of cool to just, in high school, you maybe don't cross over that much with those guys, but in summer ball, it was kind of, in Legion ball back then, it was kind of cool. And yeah, I enjoyed that. And then early on when I was coaching at Southern, before I kind of got on full time, I coached Legion ball at Joplin for 2 summers. I was the head Legion coach there, and I loved it. Great. One thing that was nice about it was that you could, your schedule was somewhat local, and we would still go to some tournaments. Like we would go to I think they called it the Fike Legion tournament in Kansas City that we would go to. Is
Yep.
that still a thing? Do they still
Oh,
have
yeah.
that?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that was sweet. And then we would play in I can't remember the name of the tournament, but it was in Springfield, and we would play at Barnhouse, which was Republic's old field. I can't remember the name of that. Maybe the Hojo Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then Carthage would have a great tournament in the summer around 4th of July, which is man, hot baseball in the summer. Love it. Sign me up.
What do you think?
Any kind of baseball, man. The more baseball, the better. So the more whether it's your high school coach having a summer team, whether you're playing somewhere in St. Louis or Kansas City or in Springfield with a travel organization, whether you're playing Legion ball, like it's all good. Sign me up for any of that. Do it. The more you can play, the better.
What does Legion have to do? Do they have to maybe do some things differently as a group to match some of what's happening within baseball today, the development, the club process? Do they have to do that? Can they stick with some of the older methods, and I don't mean necessarily older methods, but I mean it was Legion ball. It was a little different. It wasn't. Do they? And I think some of these clubs, in my opinion, and I've said this and I'll say it out loud, I mean, Legion baseball is the oldest club baseball in the United States. I mean, it's all still club baseball. But what do you do? Do they have to meet some of the things within development process to help some of these kids?
Man, that's a hard question. I think that that's a hard question, and I don't know, I think baseball, while it may not be called Legion anymore, I think you kind of still have that, because a ton of, when you're playing Legion ball, you have to live within a certain area to play. Basically, you're playing for your high school team.
Right.
And you still have high school coaches. Yes, Webb City does not have a Legion program anymore. But it was always coached by almost always their high school coach coached the Legion program.
Right.
And their high school coach is still coaching the Webb City Redbirds summer program. The same thing. McGee's got his team that plays. Coach Hauser is coaching in the summer. You got the Ozark Baseball Club. You got all that. Nixon Baseball Club. All that stuff is still in existence at the local level. So, I don't know that they're just not Legion anymore. And I can't answer that question very well because I don't know the details of all that. But I think that it would be hard. I mean, I don't know. It's back then you didn't have other options. You played, when I was in high school, you had Legion ball, and I think that the Midwest Nationals, the Midwest Nats, who now they're not called that, but that organization was just coming on. But it was one team. Back then, I think it was the Midwest Nats, and you had the St. Louis Prospects. Those were the teams in Missouri. So I think Max, and in fact, around that time, but that was you could not play for those teams. You could not just play for those teams. I mean, the Nats had Scott Elbert, who was a first round draft pick by the Dodgers, and the Prospects, I think, had Max Scherzer.
Right.
Those were, they only had one team then. They had one team. They had one group of guys, and there were only two of them in the state. So you played Legion ball. That was your only option. Now there are a lot of other people that are offering places to play. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I know that it's, I don't know. That's a hard question that I'm not probably educated enough to answer.
I'm just curious. I like to put these things out, especially, when you're talking about as you go into the process of recruiting, right? I look at the landscape of things, and I always look at, you talked about, you had Scott Albert and Max Scherzer. Those are two dudes out of this whole state. What about the rest of everybody else? What about you? And this is the things that I look at. I look at a Nick Tuck and I say, here's a gentleman that's carved a place for himself within baseball and the sport he loves, what he enjoys doing. And I don't know if we're honest enough with a lot of different players. Yeah, I think you ought to hold on to as dream as possible. Could you have hit the lottery, all of a sudden you grew another 3 inches, you did something and boom, it all just clicked and you end up in the major leagues? I think there's things that happen like that, sure. But for in general, what do you want out of what you're doing? I don't know if we ask these questions enough, because the general population of baseball players are going to play Division II or lower. They're, even when you look at the prospects around, which we do have, I think, more Division I Power 4 conference players than I've seen in a long time. It's pretty impressive. I think the level, you talk about a Jordan Martin, but a Jordan Martin at the top of that list is an outlier. That's a kid that's possible. Yep. That's maybe a MLB draft prospect. We'll see. But in general, we have a lot more kids playing baseball in this other level, and I don't know that we address that as much, or as maybe even we should. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of opportunities out there to continue playing beyond high school, and I don't think people realize how good those opportunities are. And I mean, if you can, not there's like different levels of baseball for a lot of different levels of players, and you know if you are committed and you want to like keep playing, I feel like, and you put in the work and the time, that there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, there's a lot of colleges in the state of Missouri, whether you're talking junior college, NAIA, Division III, Division II, Division I. There's so many different opportunities, and that's not even going outside the state. So we always tell people, like, we have a camp coming up on Sunday, and Coach Darnell will tell those guys at our prospect camp, he'll say, if you want to play baseball bad enough, there is a place for you. And if you're willing to, look around and put in the work and reach out to people and go to camps and do everything you can to get in front of people, like, there's a need for players, and there's a demand. There's a lot of schools out there, and if coaches know that you really, really want to play and you love it and you're, doing everything that you can, like, there's probably a place for you at some level, whether that be a 2-year school or, there's a lot of, even in the level of Division II, there's like a wide range of programs, as success level or whatever. Like, there's a lot of options out there, so it's just, if you want to play, man, there's a lot of opportunity, but it's even, no matter what level that is, like, sometimes, like, I think a lot of people are surprised by, like, and maybe not realizing how good on the flip side, like, not realizing how good baseball is, outside of, people always think of Division I baseball, and it's like, dude, like, you have no idea. It's kind of funny when and this is not meant as a criticism because people don't mean it, but it's like, you go watch players play and people will tell you, well, this guy's a D1 player or whatever. And it's like, no, like, that's the guy I need. That's the guy we need. You need to come watch us play. You need to come watch us play because, Like that's the guy we need to win. So you like sometimes it's a surprise to people when they go and they watch maybe smaller college baseball or smaller university baseball, just to see like, wow, this is really good. So I guess my point is like, yes, there's a lot of opportunities for you to play, but like it's going to be good no matter what level you are. So like it can be eye opening. So make sure you're putting the work in.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I think I've said this story before. I'm maybe repeating myself, but there was a gentleman I had met just in business, doing business. Went to his office one day, and he's wearing a national championship ring. And this guy's shorter than me. And I said, man, I got to interrupt you. That's a national championship ring, right? He says, oh, yeah, it is. He says, it's just NAIA. I'm like, and so what? I don't have one. I don't have a national championship ring. He won a national championship as the starting point guard of his NAIA school because he wanted to play basketball. To me, that shows a level of commitment of a personality of a person who wants to succeed, wants to have success. That you understand who you are as a player, you understand the process, you understand these things. And these are the conversations that I think are interesting. And as you say, go watch a Division II baseball game, especially in this state, with all the schools that are here. All of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, maybe you're not good enough to play on that team. Are you good enough to play Division II baseball? You may not be good enough to play Division II baseball. I think we don't ask those questions. What is that criteria? Where do you set? And what are some things that kids, I loved what you said earlier about if you're not willing to get in the weight room, you might not think about M.S.S.U. What are your academic goals? Are we asking the right questions when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different, I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of different options out there, and you got to kind of find out what you're looking for. And if you're a fit for that school, like if what you're looking for matches up with what that school's looking for. And ultimately you got to be able to play, you got to be able to play at that level. So, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do beyond high school, like course academics. And that's kind of a conversation that we have with the recruit right out of the bat. Like one of the first things Coach Darnell or I will ask them is, hey man, like how's your ACT? What's your GPA? Like what major are you looking for? Because those are things that can if you're this major and we don't have that major, like we need to get that out of the way right off the bat, so, it's kind of, those are conversations and kids have to kind of know, and that can help you, I guess from the kid's standpoint, the family standpoint, that can kind of help you like maybe have an idea of what schools you should be looking at and trying to reach out to, or if you don't have the, like the other thing, like certain schools have academic requirements. And obviously, if you don't meet those academic requirements, it's just, so it kind of tells you, and you kind of slim down some stuff there. Yeah, for sure.
When you're talking, how many times has an academic issue, not necessarily issue, but a lack of major, that ends the conversation quickly? I understand.
Well, it can. If I really like a player and I ask him what his major is and we don't have it, then I'm not just gonna say, okay, I guess we're done here. I mean, I'm gonna tell him about, if we really like the player, I'm gonna tell him about other majors we have and try to get him to change his major. What he's looking for, and that has happened before. But there have also been times where, hey, I'm looking for some type of engineering degree that we don't have. We don't have that. or like an architecture degree, and like, hey man, like, and if that kid's set on that, like, good for him. That's great,
Mhm.
So it happens from time to time, but I mean, not that often. We got a lot of good options here
That,
academically. So
that's when you go to the administration and say, "Hey, we need to add this major, guys. Let's go."
right, yeah, yeah. Those conversations have happened. Yeah, we hey, you know what? We used to not have business. We used to not have sports management, and kids would say, "Oh, I'm a sports management major." Well, you could be a business management major. We can do an internship. Well, now we have a sports management major, and that wasn't us that did that, but yeah, there you go.
They,
So yeah,
it
man.
helps. It sure does help. It helps a lot. I think these are interesting topics and conversation, and I know that recruiting is the thing when you're talking about kids wanting to continue their career. What is it with college? What helps them get to that place? Eh, you know, you wanted to go be on high. You wanted to be a high school baseball coach. You are coaching. It's not high school, but this is the track that got you there. How with the baseball the way it is, and the things are the way they are. There's a lot of opportunity for kids to stay in the sport using a sports management degree or a business degree to help them even with summer baseball or back into education, correct?
Oh, there's a ton of ways to stay in athletics, 100%. And like, man, my wife and I talk about this sometimes, and she's jealous because I'm like, and we tell our guys this year. Coach Darnell tells our guys this every year. He says, guys, you're here. Your time here is just such a small part of your life, and then you're gonna, you don't just concern yourself or be consumed with your individual success. Like, you've got to judge success by the team and celebrate your team's success. And because, like, you're going to miss it when you're done, you're not going to be on a team anymore. you know Coaches, one thing that's great about coaching is that you're always a part of a team. And I know in the workforce, like, you have a team when you work and all that, but it's just not the same. Like, and that's what's great about coaching. And my wife, she'll say, like, man, I miss that being part of a team. And, like, if you can get that more after high school, do it. Because it's so, when that time's over, like, just, you'll look back and you'll miss that as a team. So be a part of a team for as long as you can. And I went off there. I kind of forgot what your question was, but
I don't care. That
yeah.
was good. I loved it. I'm
So
pumped up, man. Let's go play some ball somewhere.
yeah, it's just hard. Like, I don't know. It's a small time frame, in your life, and so yeah, I love that. I'm blessed and fortunate to get to, like, it. Sometimes I look at our guys at the end of the year, and you're right. There's Everybody's emotional at the end of the year, whether you won it all or you were one of the other 240 teams who didn't get to do that. It's like, it's a super emotional time, and sometimes I have to remind myself that, like, these guys, like, just played their last game. I have to remind myself of that, and be sympathetic to that, because sometimes as a coach, you're like, you immediately flip that switch and you're like, all right, next year, man, next year starts now. And now, like, you're 2 years ahead of that, but it's, because I get to be a part of the last year. We had a great season, 2024 that ended, and it's hard for me not to just go to 2025 and start thinking about that, and I'm lucky I can do that. Players can't do that if it's their
Yeah.
last year, so it's, but yeah, man, being a part of a team, there's nothing like it. It's an amazing thing,
Last
especially
thing,
a good team.
yeah. Last thing, coach, and I'll let you get out of here. As you're talking about that, how many of these relationships that you've developed with these guys do you keep? And, how does that help them? Do they reach back and, just as you said, you went to Missouri Southern, You're still at Missouri Southern. You love Missouri Southern. How many of these guys, and how does those relationships develop long term?
Yeah, like, and that's something that I need to be better about is just staying in communication with guys who have gone, because it's like you always have a bond. Like there's a bond with players, and especially certain players, and certain groups. And, like if you have, there are relationships that last, and you may not, like as a coach, it can be tough. And as just anybody, as a human, it can be tough to just stay in touch because you get consumed with what you have going on now in your life. But like, so those relationships, yeah, they continue. And while that may not be like every day or every week communicating with that person, you just kind of have that bond that goes unsaid. Right. And we stay in touch. Like Coach Darnell does a really good job with staying in touch with our alumni players, and like we have an alumni golf tournament. Like you may not talk to those, you may only talk to some of those guys once a year, twice a year, but then you see them and it's just like, it was yesterday that they were playing. So while the daily and weekly communication may not always be there with everybody, and some guys it will, but it's like it was yesterday whenever you get together, and that's just like, that goes back to like being part of a team, man. You're always a part of that team, and you're always a part of that program. And one thing that's been really cool about Missouri Southern and is just that, like, we've had three coaches in the history of Missouri Southern baseball. There have been three coaches: Coach Wook, Coach Turner, Coach Darnell. So one thing about our program is like it really is. There's really been no.
Wow.
It's Missouri Southern guys. It's been Missouri Southern guys, which is kind of cool as an alum to know that, like, even though you may not have played for that coach, even though you may not have played for Coach Darnell or Coach Turner or whatever, that program is now led by an alum. You still are connected to that player, which is really neat and unique. And it's not, you maybe don't see that often, but I think that we have a really strong alumni base at Missouri Southern. And I would say that probably has something to do with it, that it's just been like Missouri Southern guys, so, and it's like, I don't know, Missouri Southern baseball has good tradition, and there's, we have a lot of support from, our alums and friends of the program. And, there's a lot behind the scenes that it's important to a lot of people, and that's good.
I love it. Coach, appreciate you taking the time today to talk with us, man. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Good hanging out with you, Brian. Go Lions.
There you go. I did coach on your field once, many moons ago. I was coaching my son's team, and we rolled down there to play in a tournament, and got a chance to play on your field there. So have a little bit of that.
Yeah, you have to come back. You'll have to start doing like a Division II game of the week or game of the month.
I'd love to, man. Heck,
I mean, there's
yeah.
great programs in our state, and you're talking about like getting like people getting exposure to everything that's out there. I mean, between all the Missouri schools that you have in the MIAA and the Missouri schools that you have in the GLVC, like you could put we put a pretty good product out there, man. So,
Coach, I'm all for that. I am all for that.
Let us know, man. We'll make a spot for We'll make a spot for you in the press box.
You'll be expecting the phone call. So,
all right.
We appreciate Coach Tuck, folks. If you like what we're doing, please take a moment. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the subscribe button down there. Hit that dinger right there next to it. It doesn't get you a home run. It doesn't score you a run, but it does get you a notification for upcoming episodes such as this, and we hope you enjoy. Remember, we got a lot of great stuff coming up. So make sure you stay tuned. We got we got the home run derby this weekend. If you can't make it out to ABC Ballpark, please tune in. Enjoy the festivities. We appreciate it. A couple weeks we'll be down in Adkins, over in Adkins in Columbia with Kevin Mulder and Baseball Report. So got a lot of fun stuff going on. Coach, again, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it very much. Good luck to you in the upcoming season.
Yeah, thank you.
Folks, have a great day in the Lord. Remember, all you pitchers, keep throwing strikes and hitters. Coach, you got some advice for hitters?
Stay in the middle of the field. Swing at strikes.
Love it. Good advice. We'll see y'all next time.